I was looking for freedom, and I found it in the textures, in these rocky volumes.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, first off, thank you for taking some time to do this with me today. I know that this was, not your ideal setup, but you're here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
How are you feeling?
I'm very excited, happy. It's the first time having a solo show here in London, in Europe, so it's exciting for me. Yep.
So what brought you over here then? Why here? Why now? Why London?
I did club residency like 2 years ago, and Oliep took us to many galleries, and Annka Kultys was one of them. So I met Annka like 2 years ago, and then she went to Mexico to do an art fair, material art fair. And yeah, when she was there, she offered me like the solo show, and I immediately say yes.
This isn't necessarily where I'd planned on starting, but we're here. So it's funny because if you say you did the pop residency 2 years ago, and I can almost chart 2 years ago that I saw this kind of change in direction, is there a connection between these two?
Yeah, I was here by the end of the pandemic, and by that time my work started changing. When I can tell you why it changed, if you want.
I got all the time in the world. We're 2 minutes into this, so I think so.
No, I was getting bored of working in the same way. I was like 6 years like working in the same way, and I need like to refresh the way I was painting. It was like very realistic with small brushes. Small scale canvases, so I was looking for more freedom. So I found in the rocks the way to do it. After the whole day painting, I looked to my color palette, and I saw the chaos, the beautiful chaos that happened itself, the mixing colors and all the shapes that the painting does itself. So I asked myself why what I'm doing in the painting is painting, and why what is happening in the color palette it is not.
That was the art.
Yeah. So the rocks are the pretext to make this chaos and this entropy, but contained inside a volume, inside a composition. But I can be free while painting the rocks because there's nothing planned. I was looking for freedom, and I found it in the textures, in these rocky volumes.
So you were actively looking for a change in your direction at this point. As an artist, how do you deal with that need to find something new? Like, it's quite a lot of pressure to put on yourself to completely change your visual identity, no?
Yeah. I am a self-taught. I used to work in advertising for many years, working for others, doing work, for others without doing what I really wanted to do. And I was very frustrating at that time. So now that I'm a painter and an artist, I can't allow to be bored in the studio. That's simply not allowed. If that happens, it's like a red flag. I have to do something. So that was what's happening. And I really felt this necessity of change, which is hard because you don't know where are you going. You just go like step by step until you find something. And suddenly rocks came as an epiphany. Just one day there was a rock on the canvas, and I really don't know how it appeared, but I know it was the way.
And how did this start to expand? Because you were looking at this chaos that was in the, away from the canvas. And when I look at the work now, and having spoken with Annka, like there's this idea has really started to blow up and to take on so many different themes and ideas. How quickly did that all start to flood in of how you could communicate these big feelings from within and externally, and the histories of gods and goddesses, through this material?
It's just that rocks, for me, has to do with matter, obviously. but with matter in terms of cosmical matter, geological matter, and also human materiality, you know. Since the Big Bang and the first particles of matter, and then how the Earth crust was made, you know, with all this process of pressure and temperature, and also materiality for as humans. I mean, the first representations, sculptorical representations of humans, you know, trying to explain our place in this plane, you know, as humans in this earth, you know, these sculptures of fertility, you know. So I think it comes like from that, like trying to explain myself, who am I and what am I doing here, and in what God I believe, and in what goddess I believe, you know. So it's like it's like a pantheon, like, you know, like the place where the gods and the goddesses live.
The name of the show is Goddesses of Spoiled Lands.
Yeah, exactly.
I got that right. I got that one right. Who's a goddess in your life?
Wow, I don't know. What a question. I'm gonna be really honest, but the first time, the very first thing that I thought when you just asked, my mother, but I don't know. Yeah.
Is there a conscious connection?
Maybe, I don't know. I just think about it right now. I'm just saying it.
Cool, let's explore it. So there wasn't a conscious decision to reference
No.
her in any way?
It's just I have never thought about what you asked.
So who are the goddesses you're referring to throughout the show then?
There are like different, there are different goddesses from like Asian cultures, mostly Roman and Greek, and also some other pre-Hispanic, you know. But there are, as a guy that grew up in Mexico and this Judeo-Christian culture, it's the goddess that I know, you know, with this pre-Hispanic twist, you know.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that situation, because I know that it was quite conservative, religious upbringing.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, and there wasn't too much information. So yes.
What do you mean by that?
There was no internet, and I'm gay, so yes. So I had no information. I didn't have like any referent. I mean, any person who I can see to say, oh, I want to be like him, you know. Did I explain myself?
No, you did. And it's funny, I was actually having a very similar conversation with an artist a couple of episodes ago who was a black queer artist that grew up in a small town, Alabama. And, you know, it was a lot of what you're saying was very similar. It was like he didn't see himself represented anywhere else.
Yeah, that was the word. Yeah.
And I wonder, you know, what you're talking about is something similar. So I'm actually going to ask you the same question I asked him. And sorry for regular listeners that are like, oh my God, this guy's got one question to ask everyone.
No, but it's true. I mean, I think all the people that grew up during the 80s or 90s maybe, or before, it was hard.
When was the first time you saw yourself represented through a medium, art or creativity?
Medium. I think the first one was Will and Grace or something like that.
Shout out Will and Grace. I love that. I didn't see that answer coming, but I'm really glad that's what you said. It's good. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer in this.
That were one of the first shows that showed gay people, you know, but it wasn't the cliché of the gay. It was like a...
Quite relatable.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
Like, these are quite similar to my experiences. What can I ask you a little bit more on this? Well, like, because I don't. You know, I've been to Mexico before. I definitely was there for a short amount of time, so I don't really know what it's like to grow up there. I mean, it seemed open and diverse.
Now it's very open.
Talk to me about what it was like as a kid there, especially if you were battling with your sexuality and identity.
It's just that I didn't. When I was a teenager, I used to live not in Mexico City. I was in another town, a really small city in the center of Mexico, Aguascalientes. And the people there, hello Aguascalientes. But the people there is like so square-minded, or at least in the 80s, it was that way. I not even had the vocabulary to express that I was gay because I not even know that world exists. So I couldn't label what I felt.
Yeah, wow. So what role did art play for you during this time? I know that you're self-taught, but you started painting at quite a young age and then just it disappeared for a long time, right?
I used to draw a lot. So art for me was a refugee. I mean, yeah, because I felt that I was so different to the other boys, you know. And I was in a school where just boys, just males. So everybody was like playing football or playing whatever, and I was drawing, always drawing. I spent hours and days drawing, like insane.
And was this just for creative outlook, or were you being, was this idea of creativity being nurtured in a way that, like, were they saying, hey, you could, if you're really talented, if you do this, you could be a famous artist or anything like that? Or was it just literally a form of escapism?
Both. Yeah, both, because I really, it was like a refugee, but also I really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, and I got like, you really do it. You're really good at drawing or whatever. So, and I like it, like that compliment.
And then where did it go?
Oh yeah. I would say that it was a gap of 20 years. I left like drawing and painting when I was 15, and then 20 years of nothing. And then I started again at 35. I see life as cycles, like it's very marked.
And especially, I think for a lot of people in their 20s, it's where they go off and they just start to really find the world and sort of explore, find themselves a little bit. And then by the time you get to your 30s, things are maybe starting to calm down, and you're starting to move back. And I'm speaking for myself here as well. It's like that 30s is like, okay, we're preparing for landing. And then things are suddenly maybe a little bit slower, and you take all that chaos and that rush of the 20s, and then hopefully you've maybe kind of got something ready to go from it. Was that where how did it work for you?
What I felt is that I was reaching, I was 35, and I was reaching like 40, like I saw 40s coming, so I said, I have to paint now. It's now or never, so I did it. I quit my job and I began painting.
And it was as easy as that. So go out and do it, folks. Everyone quit your job and you'll be fine. I take it you had started to build up momentum there? Were you painting in the studio? Did you make more time for this before you came back in?
I mean, the change was a process, obviously. And
I think it's important we make that clear.
Yeah. So it took a lot of planning for me, like 2 years. And so I can set like a small studio at home, and I tried to paint while I was in advertising, but painting is very jealous, so I couldn't do both, And first, when I quit from advertising, I still like doing freelance job. Mm-hmm. So it was part-time freelance and painting, and it was like a very slow process, and I was very afraid because it was it was a jump into the void.
Yeah, and advertising is a career, right?
It's a career.
Stable.
And a stable career with a stable...
Good career.
With a stable income, mostly that, So it was really a jump into the void. I didn't know what was going to be there.
If at all, how did your time at advertising and the way that you look at images and dissect, kind of like, I guess, how you communicate to people, did that inform any of how you communicate through imagery with your art and your own practice? Is there a connection between the two?
There must be, but I think that my most recent work, it's separate. It gets more separated from that. At the early work, I think it was like my process was my creative process was was similar to the advertising process when I had to design something, you know.
Because it's what you knew.
Yeah, but now I feel more free, you know. That's why I was like looking for this freedom, not to be like so squared minded while working. In the early work I used to work with digital sketch and just copying from that sketch to the canvas. So I felt myself like a machine, just like copying, and I was losing this part of the process where you don't know what's going to happen in the canvas, and the painting creates itself somehow. You know, you're just like having this conversation and flowing through it. You know.
And is that just through time, practice, building yourself up in your confidence as a painter?
Yeah.
Do you feel more confident now in the studio?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Were you always working with oils?
Yeah. Well, in this series,
Because this is like people will spend half their career trying to develop and learn how to paint with oils.
I think that I learned how to paint with oils, and then now like unlearning how to like using it in a different way.
Can you talk more about this?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the chaos, like with the entropy, like while I am painting the rocks, you know, it's like vomiting painting. It's a very emotional. I like it because it's like turn off my mind and just like throw up the painting.
I like that. Let me go back then to the start of this work. If I look at one of these canvases, where's the starting point for you? Because I think with maybe the other stuff I could picture in my head with the previous aesthetic, I imagined there was a photo shoot or you using reference images, and then I thought digitally distorting them in some way, and then like you said, but with these ones, because they are so far removed from what you would call figuration. So I'm really interested to know what those initial steps look like. Do you literally just walk up to a blank canvas and fucking start going at it?
I draw a lot. So yeah, I make like these raw sketches in pencil, and from that I go to the canvas. Yeah, and I try to decide what I'm painting, not to make decisions before, and work with the mistake. You know, it's like if something wrongs happen, I know that I can put more oil, or I can sand it, or I can do something, but I can make it work, you know? It has to do with the confidence that we were talking.
So how much of this work then is autobiographical?
I don't know if I think it has to do with my beliefs, like trying to find.
So then who are the people in these? Because there is still people contained within these. And that's just why I struggle to identify if it's figuration or not, because I'm not entirely sure if it is, but there's definitely people in there. Parts of anatomy are contained within there.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk of at least of this one and that one, maybe. For example, this is, the title of the painting is Luperca's Amendment.
Amendment?
Yeah, like what's the word in Spanish? Enmienda, like she's trying to restore something. And the reference for this painting is Rómulo and Remo's sculpture, where this she-wolf is feeding this couple of babies. And it has to do with the foundation of Rome, you know, Rómulo and Remo legend. So here, the situation it's different because in the real sculpture, in the antique sculpture, you have the animal that is feeding the babies. The babies are getting fed by nature. They are eating nature somehow. And here we have this woman or man made of debris that is feeding nature back, this animal fetus, you know? And I think that Roman Empire has to do a lot with our capitalism way of thinking, you know? I think it's where all that bullshit way of thinking started somehow.
Speaking as a guy that worked in advertising as well. Yeah. So you've seen how the sausage is made.
So yeah, so this painting is about that, to give nature what we have stolen from them, from them.
It seems like quite a violent interaction.
We have been violent with nature, and what happens to the planet happens to the people.
So it's intentionally violent.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and they are fetus. They are trying to grow. You know, they are damaged. They are.
If you're happy talking about some of the works just now, then I'd absolutely love to, because I spoke with Annka earlier, and she was describing this piece here. And for the podcast, I'll maybe jump in and describe it, but maybe you could talk a little bit about your interpretation.
The title of the painting is Venus Moves, and that it has a lot of reference from the Venus of Botticelli for me. That painting is like very airy, and like it has like a windy atmosphere, you know. So here, she or he, it's holding this hair dryer, and also those rocks are doing like like lungs, you know, like to give like this sensation of breathing, and this, you know, the hair also like windy hair. Yeah. But at the same time, she's masturbating like this penis on the hair dryer, and there is a shell also like as a reference of the Venus, and so yeah.
Now, you see, the thing is, right, you're laughing, so I'm interested to know if these are intentional, if humor's intentional within there.
Yeah, I think the world is fucked up, so we have to have a good time. Well, you know, so.
While looking at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the Titanic's going down, we might as well just sit back, grab a couple of drinks, and enjoy the band.
Yeah, exactly. You say it.
Throughout your work, both now and then, there is a blurring of, you know, is it between identity, emotion? I can't tell, you know, whether the figures are male or female. I can't tell if they're happy, if they're sad, because there's either multiple versions of them, or, you know, or we've just seen an abstraction somewhere. And I wonder what function this idea of duality or multiple identities serves for you.
It's just that we are both. I mean, you are both, I am both. I mean, I'm not always happy, and I'm not always sad. I'm both, and everything has a dual manifestation in the cosmos. So, and it has to do also with gender, you know. I'm not totally masculine, and I'm not totally feminine. I'm a mix of both, and whatever you look at works that way. At the sunset, there's not night, and there's not day, you know. It's like something in between.
So these paintings are something in between everything.
I would say so. Yeah, maybe.
I'd like to keep picking apart some of these then, because there's just a few things that I find particularly interesting. You know, it's mainly around the obvious stuff, like the planet being inside the anus.
Yeah, but I can tell you about that. That's interesting.
I'm into that. I'm into it. Let's do it, because it's like it's something that I think it's important for us to discuss.
Yeah, that's Ometeo. Well, the title of the painting is Ometeotl Striking, and Ometeotl. I love that god or goddesses from the Aztecs, because it's a dual god. It's integrated by feminine and masculine. It's Ometeotl and Ometecutli, and together gave shape to the god or goddesses. And I love how these pre-Hispanic cultures could think about gender in a very not westernized way, you know, like. So I'm amazed by that, you know. They look at sexuality very, very different as today. So here's this god, but it's wearing these bells on their boots that are also platforms, and at the same time it's like something is happening in his anus or she's anus, and for me, it's like giving birth to matter, you know? It's giving birth like a planet, or you can see it in a more pornographic way, but...
Was this this was a reference to a particular painting?
No. It's just, to the god, to the Aztec god. Because, I mean, that god is the creator of everything, and it's the creator of other God and goddesses like below.
I've got to ask, just because I'll kill myself if I don't, what was the moment where you decided that the anus would be giving birth or birthing all matter? Tell me about that moment where you're sitting on the tube just sketching and you're like, look at it.
That's too personal. I don't know if I want to say it. I'm just gonna say something. That I had a surgery on February. That's it.
I shouldn't laugh at that. I'm definitely not supposed to laugh at that. Sorry, what I meant to say was, I hope it went well, and it's good to see you in fine health.
So somehow, yes, this kind of autobiographic.
So do you think actually if you sat down and you really, I think maybe actually it also helps to have other people, maybe by the end of the show, because you open tonight, and then by the time you finish in September, I wonder how much more having conversations with people will have informed maybe how you feel about your work. Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, you realize things that you don't see yourself.
Like when someone asks you about your mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit, they're all about her. God damn it. I wanted to ask, because you've mentioned, you've kind of like dropped Aztec mythology, you've dropped art history in here, and it feels like there's a lot of like quite conscious research going into your work and the real design of it. And I wonder if there's a particular purpose of your research. Is it just something that you find particularly interesting? Are you actively looking for references for your work? Or, or you just find yourself as a hobby sitting just digging through Aztec history on Wikipedia?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. My process is kind of chaotic. I just like look for references and start sketching and then I start painting, and at the end it makes sense. But while I'm working, I don't really know where am I going.
Do you think through this process of semi-autobiographical work you've learned things about yourself? Do you think it's helped develop your understanding of who you are?
Yeah, totally.
And how?
How? Oh my God.
It's a podcast. I can't just let you say yes.
After all, each painting is a reflection of who am I. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know. It's not a rational process. It's something that is just there and happens. Mm-hmm. And I think, at least for me, but I would think that also for each artist or for each painter is that way. It tells you about who you are.
What do you want people to take away from this show then?
Whatever they take is okay for me, but these goddesses for me are made from debris, from the things that doesn't work anymore. Our thoughts, our beliefs, I don't know, things like capitalism, things like private property, things like the ecological disaster, things like misogyny, things that doesn't make sense anymore. So we have to reorder our beliefs to build something better, to build a better future. So for me, this show has this sense, I'm like collecting these rocks and putting it together to assemble them in a way in which I can believe something new, something greater, something, yeah.
Do you think there's a sort of, I was going to say a quiet radicalism, but maybe it's not that quiet. Maybe it's actually quite loud and obvious. Do you think there's that sense of radical rethinking within your work?
I didn't get you, sorry.
I don't know. It's just when you talk about something, like I wouldn't have looked at that, right, and thought that there was a connection there between the idea of overthrowing capitalism,
okay,
which is quite a radical idea, right? It's one I think has got a lot of legs to it, but so I find it interesting the way that you talk about this debris as something that's inherently connected to this idea of really changing how we think about the basic structures of society.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, but I don't. Yeah.
Don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
No, you started it with the
You
started it when you started talking about radicalism.
But it's like a compliment. It's a complicated matter, So maybe I don't have like the vocabulary to explain it like the way I would like in English, maybe. But what I want to say is that things are not working the way we are doing it as humanity. We have to change and reorder and make new structures, new god and goddesses in which we live.
I like that. And let me maybe ask a more succinct question than the kind of jumbled up question I did ask. What role does art play in how we think about the world, or changing how we think about the world and the status quo that we live in?
I mean, for me, it's, I don't know, it's just to put like a little grain of sand, and try to do something. I don't know if people is going to take that message from this show, or if art in general changes the world. I want to believe that, yes.
Did art change the way that you think about the world?
Yeah, I would say so. Or at least it's what I want to think. If not, I get depressed.
But when was the first time that you were blown away or moved by a piece of art? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I do remember when I was very young. I mean, I was like 4 years old, 3 years old, in Mexico City. My parents took me to this Polyforum cicadas, where is this big mural painted by cicadas. And as a child, you look at everything and you look at much more bigger than it is, So I remember that humongous building with the mural, and that really made me feel something. And I think that's it.
I picture art being part of a lot of Mexican life, art and culture. I only have spent a very short amount of time, particularly in Mexico City.
You should come.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the invitation, but maybe that was it. But I remember just feeling that there was art bursting through every single corner of the city. And is that true of Mexican life, do you think?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of street art right now. I mean, but yeah, I get that a lot, that question, that how Mexico has an influence in my art, but it's hard to say it.
Do you think this, because I see quite a lot of artists, and you could tell that this could have only been made by an American artist. Do you think that this could have only been made by a Mexican artist?
No, not really. I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
So do you see the connection, the way that the culture of Mexico may have fed into your work? Is it obvious in any way?
My work has a lot of Mexico, but not in a frontal way. It's like kind of hidden somehow, It's. I've been asked a lot that how Mexico is reflected in my work. But I don't know, because I have lived. I was born there, and I have spent all my life there. So I don't know how.
It's for someone else to decide.
I would need to be like outside Mexico for some years, and then see how. So I can answer that question,
So what's your plan for the rest of your time here? Your show runs until 2nd of September. Are you going to be hanging about in Europe for the rest of the summer? Or
I'll be here in London for the whole month. So yeah, I want to rest. I want to do as many studio visits with colleagues as I can. I want to go to openings and visit museums,
and this is probably a stupid question because of everything that we've talked about, but you are actively out trying to look at other artists' work, take inspiration, things like this. Because the artist I was speaking with last week, she just nothing else comes in. It's just her in her studio, and the rest of the world, the rest of the art world. It doesn't matter what's going on there. But for you,
I think there are periods. I don't know. Maybe I've been working all year long in the studio, like very focused. So now it's.
How long was this body of work?
I started in January. For me, I want to rest, like knowing new people, visiting, doing studio visits. Yeah, and I think it's inspirational, and yeah, and I'm here. I mean, I'm not in my country, so I have to take advantage of that and squeeze it.
Do you think you're going to stay in this particular theme, this aesthetic, for a while?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Once you leave, like, I guess it's impossible to go back, you know, for you to revisit that earlier incarnation with the more hyper-real portraiture. I take it as an artist, you can't go back. Is that the end of that? Or do you still see it as an open book?
Never say, how do you say it? Never say, yeah, never say never.
I see tiny little flashes, like in the eyes over here, there's still, in the glasses particularly, there's still little nods. There's a thread, there's like a tiny little thread, there's still him in there.
I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe I just start like mixing both. But just it's something that I'm saying right now. I don't know if it's going to happen, you know? As I told you, for me, it's important to be happy in the studio, to work, to go to work and have a surprise there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel it as a place of freedom then?
Yeah.
It's just funny because it's still the job. There's still a pressure that comes with it, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have, it's a job, but you have, the work is to make it appear not as a job.
I'm trying to think if that's how I want to end it. As a self-taught artist, right? What is the one thing that, not necessarily piece of advice, the one lesson that you have learned over the course of your journey without, you know, a lot of people will have come through schools and residencies and institutions and things like this, but as a self-taught artist, what's the one lesson that you learned that you think is the most valuable?
Oh, to be like obstinated, that word exists in English.
It does, but I wonder if it means the same thing.
Yeah, just like, if you want something, you just have to do it.
Okay.
And keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. It's like, we would say in Spanish, it's horas nalga. It's like the horas, yeah, like just like work.
I'll take that. Thank you so much for your time today. This is
Oh, thank you, Doc.